Is the moon hollow?
There's so many strange things about it. During one of the Apollo missions, they crashed one of the rockets into the moon. The phrase is, the moon rang like a bell for over an hour. And then you've had people who have seen pictures, like I've talked about Carl Wolf. What am I looking at? He's like, this is the backside of the moon. There's like cities there and stuff. He said he was poisoned.
I mean, that's what happened with Nikola Tesla too, right? Did they seized all
his
like
stuff.
80 boxes of research?
No more water car.
I want to talk about the hollow moon.
Okay.
Is the moon hollow?
Man.
I've not dug into this. I had a side
weird.
Conversation with Randall Carlson once, and he's the one that brought it up. I have not seen this episode of yours.
It's a fun one. That was Gino, my brother, said, you got to do this one. And it's like, hollow moon, that is nonsense. And then I'm researching the episode, and I just start to realize that there's a lot of weird stuff about the moon. And by the time I was done with the episode, I was convinced that it was hollow. But there's a lot of weird things that have happened with the moon. Like, first of all, the moon is too big to be here. It's just too big. We've never found another system in our solar system or any other that has this giant moon right next to us like this. This is totally unique. We haven't found a moon that has such a perfect orbit like this, that also the same side faces us all the way. We're a snowflake with this, totally unique. So that's strange.
No shit, I didn't realize that.
No, we haven't found it anywhere.
The only moon that we know of that doesn't rotate.
No, there are a few moons that are tidally locked like that.
Okay,
but it's rare. But when you stack up all these coincidences, it starts to paint a picture like the moon is weird. A lot of people will point to the fact that the moon during the eclipse is like the perfect size to block out the sun, because it's like a 400-to-1 ratio. That's fair, but the moon at one point was a lot closer to the Earth, and it's drifting away. So at some point, it's not going to be perfect anymore. But the moon, the far side the crust is different, older, and much thicker, and fewer impacts are on the far side that are on the near side. When you think it would be the opposite, because that's kind of like should be grabbing things as they come in, but instead there's not as many impacts on that side. When during one of the Apollo missions, as a test, a seismic test, they crashed one of the rockets into the moon just to take readings, seismograph readings, to see what was going on there. And the phrase is, the moon rang like a bell for over an hour. So if you set off like seismic charges here to measure sound waves that go through the Earth, as they go through the Earth, they slow down as they go through all this dense matter and then through the mantle and the core. Like, it just slows down. The moon, they don't do that. The sound waves sped up and started to bounce all around in there and started to like reverberate for a long time. And no one could really explain that. Now, the prevailing theory, the mainstream theory, is that the moon is a lot less dense than the Earth because it was created from the Earth's crust and the upper mantle, which is less dense, which is why the moon is less dense. So the interior has maybe some hollow spaces, or it's just it's not quite as dense. That's why. Okay, but the sound waves bounced around for a long time. There was a long time.
This is true.
This is true.
What hit it again?
They dropped one of the rocket boosters. They just crashed it in there. But they did seismograph readings in subsequent missions there, where they actually drop in like explosives, control explosives, and they just take the readings and see what happens to the sound waves. It's a normal scientific thing to do. I think they were just surprised. There's been a couple of NASA scientists who've even said it would make a lot more sense that the moon wasn't here than the fact that it is, because there's so many strange things about it. And we see light on the moon all the time. They're called transient lunar phenomena, where you just see these just light flashes on the moon all the time. And if you have binoculars, you can even see this. In one of the moon craters, I think it's the Aristarchus crater, there's this blue glowing light that just appears from time to time and then goes away, and then it appears again. They call it the blue gem.
What?
And you can see it. So what's causing the light up there? Well, mainstream scientists will say, well, you're seeing flashes because the moon it's a lot like glass. It's very glassy and reflective, so you're seeing that. but we'll see light just like go across. You'll just see light zip across. And then what's the blue light in that same crater that we've been seeing since 17th century? It's Aristarchus or Aristarchus crater, I think is how you say it. Blue light. What is that? And now they're seeing, just very recently, like this year, these swirls of light and gases happening on the moon, different places. They don't understand it. There was one point where the moon doesn't really have an atmosphere. It has a tiny one, doesn't really have one. But for a little while it did. There was just all this water vapor in the air on the moon that came from somewhere and then just disappeared. So I don't know what that is.
Time is a funny thing. It's so limited, and yet we let it pass by us. We're all guilty of putting important things off until later. If you've been putting off life insurance, check out Fabric by Gerber Life. They make it fast and easy so you can check it off your list right now. Fabric by Gerber Life is term life insurance you can get done today. Made for busy parents like you, all online and on your schedule right from your couch. You could be covered in under 10 minutes with no health exam required. Fabric is partnered with Gerber Life, trusted by millions of families just like yours for over 50 years. There's no risk, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can cancel at any time. And they have over 1,900 five-star reviews on Trustpilot with a rating of excellent. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/srclips. That's meetfabric.com/srclips. MEET fabric.com/srclips. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions.
And then you've had people who have seen pictures, like I've talked about Carl Wolf, who was U.S. Air Force, and he was like a technician. He basically the level is a copy repairman, and he's called in to fix some imaging equipment at NASA or Air Force, wherever. And he walks in there, and he's like an airman. And he sees another young guy, and he's like, "Oh, Carl, you got to see this." And Carl looks, he's like, "What am I looking at?" He's like, "This is the backside of the moon. There's like cities there and stuff. There's mushroom-shaped things and towers and highways and all this stuff." Carl's like, "This is amazing. I can't believe it." And Carl said he went home, he told his wife, and he said he was watching the news, waiting for this to show up on the news, but it never did. And you could see those photos allegedly, and I used them in one of my episodes, and it looks like a civilization on the far side of the moon. Carl, unfortunately, was met with an untimely death. He got hit by a car when he was riding his bike, so we don't know much more from Carl. But he was part of the 2000, so much.
That's crazy.
So much. When I did the Killer Patents episode, I ended it with all the free energy inventors that,
like the hydrogen car guy.
He said he was poisoned. He said he's having like lunch with investors to like finally take his car ran on water. This is Stanley Meyer, and he's not feeling well, and he runs outside. He's like throwing up in the street, and his brother was his partner, and his brother said, "What's going on?" He's like, "I was poisoned," and then he dies, and that was the end of it. No more water car. Then we just have this kid who created plastiline. He like took plastic and created fuel out of it, and then he disappeared for a little while. I think he's back. So it could be a conspiracy, but I'm going to look into him. But a lot of these inventors, so my favorite one is Sparky Sweet, who's worth looking into, because he has video of all this stuff like in his workshop, and you see he's got voltmeters and stuff, and all this energy's created, and he takes his camera around. He's like, "Look, nothing is plugged in. Nothing is plugged in," and it caught the attention of someone in military somewhere who said, I want to be your partner, and we'll take this wide or whatever. And he worked with this guy for a while, and then at some point, black van shows up, a couple of guys in suits have a conversation with Sparky and his wife. They go away, and then he has a heart attack. And that's really the end of it. Now, all his research was taken, everything was seized, and that's how it works.
But that's what happened with Nikola Tesla too, right? They seized all his
like
stuff. 80 boxes of
yes.
research.
So when he died, the it wasn't the FBI at the time, although the FBI was there. It was like the Office of Alien Property or something, whatever agency's in charge of foreigners. He died, and within hours, they were in his room. This is at the New Yorker Hotel, and they seized 80 boxes of his research, all kind of research plans, and because it's national security, and they held on to it for months and months. And they finally returned his property to his nephew, but 20 boxes were missing. So in those boxes, allegedly, and this falls under Project Nick, is Tesla's research into direct energy weapons, to DWs, which was very hot with military at the time, with DARPA and all of that. We still don't know what's happened to those boxes, but we do know that they were researching things based on Tesla's research. And the formula, the sort of the architecture for the HARP project up in Alaska, a lot of that comes from Tesla's research. And it took me quite a while to connect the dots, but you will find Tesla's missing work suddenly shows up in patents from this guy somewhere in Alaska. I forget his name. And out of the blue, he lands a contract with the DOD for a lot of money, and they build a facility in Fairbanks, Alaska. And it's just an array of antennas in a small building, and it cost a fortune. Like, where'd the money go? Cost a fortune. And what it does is it ionizes and creates plasma in the atmosphere. And they say we use this to test the atmosphere. But it could also be used for all kinds of processes. What Tesla wanted to do was create free energy by exciting the ionosphere. That was what he was doing with Wardenclyffe Tower. But he needed funding to do that, and he couldn't get any funding. J.P. Morgan was his patron, and he told J.P. Morgan, do you see it in his letter? I need a sum of money. He needed like $200,000 to get this project going. And J.P. Morgan said, well, you're building wireless communication. What do you need all this money for? And Tesla's like, no. Wireless communication, I got that. We're going to do wireless energy. We're going to do wireless free energy for everyone on the planet can just tap into this and just get free electricity. And J.P. Morgan says, well, how do you put a meter on that? J.P. Morgan owned copper mines that made copper wire. He owned rubber farms all over the world that made insulation for the wire. He owned lumber mills and forests that created poles for wire. He owned coal factories. He owned machine shops that created generators for electricity. And he owned railroads that brought all this stuff around the country. Free energy shuts that whole business down. We don't need any of that. Carnegie, we don't need any of that. The Mellon family, we don't need you guys anymore. It's just free. Imagine what the world would be like if energy was just free.
That's the golden age.
Yeah, we're not going to live to see it.
Nope. Wow.
So I think I went off on a few tangents, but
Have you ever looked into the flat Earth stuff?
I have. I'm not a flat earther.
Me neither.
I don't even want to do an episode on it because to me it's so ridiculous. But people do request it. And me calling it ridiculous, I'm going to get a lot of hate for it, but I can handle the hate from the flat earthers. That's fine. But I do like the theory. Like on YouTube, you're not going to find much flat Earth stuff. That is suppressed. But if you go land on Rumble and search flat Earth,
why do you think they suppress it?
There's some stuff we'd have to talk about off air, but there are subjects that YouTube will just not allow you to discuss. So I can't say specifically because I made a promise to someone to not tell. But if you look at a couple of my demonetized videos, you'll see that they're kind of softball. Like, why is this demonetized? Go look at those. Those are no topics that I didn't know until it was too late. I was like, why is this demonetized? Like, I can't talk about that. I'm like, everything's true in here. I debunk most of it. I can't even talk about it at all, true or not. So flat Earth, they don't like that one. But if you go on Rumble and spend like 2, 3, 4 hours just watching those videos, you'll walk away like, oh, It could be.
There's some compelling stuff.
Good stuff.
There are some compelling arguments.
Yeah.
I will say
The Antarctica wall.
Say that.
He's got a point.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.